Adeptus Titanicus Dominus is the 3D turn-based strategy PC game adaptation of Games Workshop's Titan Legion tabletop game. It was released on the 31st of May 2018 in early access. It's being developed and published by a small indie studio named Membraine Studios. It's a very ambitious project where they're trying to bring one of the many cool elements of the Warhammer 40k universe to life in a game: the Titans. I like Warhammer 40k. I would consider my knowledge of the lore to be limited but decent. My knowledge at least grew a lot over the past year thanks to the rebirth of Warhammer 40k lore channels. If there's one thing I can't shut up about whenever Warhammer 40k is discussed, it's Titans. The idea and skill behind the Titans is mind-numbing and hard to truly grasp and understand, but that's what makes it so cool. But they are also huge mechs, which I also really like, so that's always a plus point. But I'm not here to talk about the lore, as there are enough other people who can do that better than me. I'm here to talk about Adeptus Titanicus Dominus. A quick disclaimer before I start: I am well aware that this game is in early access and that it's not finished. However, in my opinion, being in early access does not protect you from criticism or opinions, especially when you charge money for it. However, it would be unfair to fully review this game as I usually do, as a review is done on a completed product, which is not the case here. So do not consider this as a full review, but as my first impression and thoughts on the current product. I know it seems a bit unnecessary to say, but I just wanted to make sure that it was clear. So now let's get started. In Adeptus Titanicus Dominus you get to command these Titans. The gameplay is bare-bone basic turn-based strategy, which is logical as it's an adaptation of a tabletop game. I do not have experience with the Titan Legion tabletop game, however I have played tabletop games before, and the gameplay in Adeptus Titanicus Dominus really mirrors certain feelings I have with tabletop games. And I think it's good they picked an already existing game as its foundation. Indie developers have limited resources and time and have to use them in the most effective way that is possible. And not having to make the gameplay from scratch saves a lot of time. But while I understand and approve of the idea, they didn't really went further than just making a one-on-one adaptation. I would like, and it would suit the game better, to stand more on its own feet. It being an adaptation is fine, but an adaptation doesn't mean it has to be a direct copy of something. The tabletop game can be the foundation, but you have to build things on top of that to make the game unique. As far as I know, they only ventured a little bit outside of the tabletop game, but not as nearly enough that would make a difference. As how the game is right now, I miss the elements that separate a video game from everything else. It's just a tabletop game, but on the PC, which is not something I would strive for. In a tabletop game, there are limitations on mechanics that you can use, but in gaming, those limitations are different and have more possibilities. It feels like the game holds on too much on its tabletop counterpart, thereby ignoring these possibilities. This game is sold by the idea of controlling these god engines of war, yet I constantly questioned myself if I was really controlling them. There's a nice variation of Titan classes you can use. For now you got the Warhound, Reaver and Warlord class Titan. To easily explain their differences, Warhound Titans are the weakest but fastest, Reaver Titans are in the middle of things, and Warlord Titans are the strongest but slowest. Of course, the further you go up the ladder of Titan classes, the bigger they become, and while I would love to see even bigger Titans in the game, it's good they limited themselves to 3 classes for now. However, don't get fooled in thinking you got only 3 classes to pick from and that it's that simple. At the beginning of battles, you get to customize every Titan individually with what kind of weapons they will be wielding. This was a really nice surprise as it's a key part of the gameplay. There is, however, a limit to how many Titans you can use in a battle. Every Titan has a point value which increases depending on the weapons they wield, and once you have reached your army limit, you can't pick more Titans. Picking the right weapons for the Titans to wield is very important because it will decide what possible tactics you can use on the battlefield. Yet so far, I never got into a situation that it felt like I made the wrong choices in my setup. Even in difficult spots, I figured out quite easily how to get out of it with what I had. And no, it's not because I'm skilled in these kind of games, it's actually the opposite. The reason why I noticed that the Titan setup doesn't matter is because I actually suck at these kind of games. This is why I called the gameplay at the start bare-bone basic turn-based strategy, as there's not a lot to consider in terms of strategy. You click on a titan, have it attack another titan, and you do damage, or you don't, and you and the opponent keep attacking until the end of the turn. What I'm really missing here is a layer of interaction, of micromanagement. The first thing that comes to my mind where they should take inspiration from when it comes to interaction and micromanagement of single units is Battlefleet Gothic Armada. While that game takes interaction and micromanagement to a level that I find very uncomfortable, it's still a good place to start. The lore describes titans in battle as a constant push and pull on how the energy is used in a titan, and it would be a very soothing and cool aspect to be added in this game. Again, it doesn't need to go as far as Battlefleet Gothic Armada, it can be kept as simple as just choosing between weapons and shields. Imagine, one of your titans is in a difficult spot. How are you going to divide the energy of that titan? You can play it safe and keep it balanced, but that probably won't get you anywhere. So are you going full out attack, spending all the energy from the reactor to your weapons? Or did you just take a huge hit and you want to recharge your void shields faster, as you then can retreat or tank the next unavoidable hit? You could also try to bluff and provoke the enemy. It's a high risk, high reward, as he might think that he can put all the energy on attack as he just dealt a huge amount of damage on you and wants to finish the job, only to get obliterated himself by you ditching all defense and go in all out attack yourself. Right now, there are a few things you can micromanage in this game, but that doesn't really require your attention. You got your void shields that disappear after sustaining a certain amount of damage, and you got your princeps, or well, pilot in simple terms, stress level. If a titan takes damage, the stress level goes up, and if it goes too high, the titan won't function in the next turn. However, I never got to the point that stress was too high for my titan not to function, as they were usually destroyed before reaching that point. And at the end of every turn, a small amount of stress is removed from all the titans and their void shields regenerate, and the only thing worth keeping an eye on are the void shields, as they are the only thing that matter. If there was just a little bit more interaction and micromanagement, it would make the game feel less predictable and more fun, but more importantly, feel more like you are in control of these titans rather than just moving them around and having them shoot at each other one after the other. This would also again make the game more of a game than just a PC adaptation of a tabletop game. But what I was definitely missing the most was a campaign or story mode, which is also what Membraine Studios is working on right now. Not sure if they're going to write a complete new story for the game, or that they will use one of the stories that's already existing in the Warhammer 40k universe. But a campaign or story mode is definitely something this game needs. And I think more people would be willing to give this game a shot if there was some kind of story in it. Though I originally thought that the scenarios that are in the game right now would be small missions with a little story behind it. However, that was a mistake on my end, as that was not the case. Instead, scenarios are pre-made matches where you have no control over what titans you have and you can't pick their weapon setup. They offer a decent amount of challenge, but most of them were not too difficult. The other game mode is Skirmish. This is the complete opposite of scenarios. This is where you have full control over your titans and their weapon setup. The map is also at random and the AI mirrors its titan choices based on your army score. Prepping for these matches was a lot of fun, as I always tried to have groups of titans together that were balanced and would work well together. It's just a shame that it feels like these choices I made setting up my titans seem to not matter in battle. I won all my battles without a problem, and I don't believe for a second that I always made flawless combinations and choices. Especially in the beginning of the game, I didn't know what I was doing, yet everything constantly worked out for me. And then comes the win conditions, which creates an even more difficult spot for the game. The main way to win is by earning points. You earn points by destroying certain titans or capturing a certain position. And once the turn counter gets to a certain turn, usually around 5 to 6, and one of the players has reached a certain point limit, that player wins. The other win condition is a lot simpler, and that is by annihilating all the enemy titans. Almost every victory I had in this game was through annihilation. Not because I didn't want to earn points, but usually around the victory turn only 1 or 2 enemy titans remain, and it's easier to kill them than to capture a point that's on the other side of the map. To not get an annihilation victory, I had to force myself to ignore the enemy and just rush the capture point, which is no fun at all. The AI also really works badly with these points, as it will sacrifice titans just for a point at the start of the match. While I'm all for victory through sacrifice, it's odd that at the start of the match, where points do not matter, the AI prioritize them. If it would do that as the victory turn is coming closer and closer, it would make sense, as I also would sacrifice my titans if victory was in my grasp. But it makes no sense doing that at the start, as it will always put you on a disadvantage. I did really like the idea that the titan with the highest army score is worth 2 points. It makes it a sort of a leader and puts a crosshair on your titan right from the start, and losing it would be a big loss. Seeing my leader titan in a bad spot was one of the few moments I actually felt like I had to use tactics to avoid a heavy loss. But ultimately, I was never worried about losing based on points. Battles always led towards annihilation victories, so at some point I started to focus more and more on just destroying the enemy titans and forgetting about everything else, which made matches kind of bland at times, as it always goes the same way. So, would I consider the game to be bad as for what it is right now? Well, no, definitely not, but it's not really good either. It's sorta in the middle. The game is very basic in terms of gameplay, but what it offers works. I had no crashes, and while some people report annoying bugs or glitches, I didn't experience those, besides some camera issues. Yes, a lot of polish is missing when it comes to certain ideas, and some ideas are in my opinion still missing, but overall the ideas and thoughts behind it are okay, they work. And some ideas are even really good, but those are not finished yet. For example, I was very excited when the game setting said it had a cinematic camera. While its execution is fairly disappointing, as the camera just gets glued to the titan's ass, making it impossible to see what is going on, I still highly approved of this idea. If they can make it similar to the cinematic camera of a game like Star Wars Empire at War, then this game's presentation would even be better than it already is. The presentation is definitely this game's strength. The models of the titans look absolutely fantastic and the sound design is good. When a cannon gets fired, it carries some good impact, and seeing these huge machines walk on the battlefield is just a joy to watch. Animations on these machines are on point and are exactly what you would expect from large walking mechs. On that end, it's exactly what I wanted from a game promising titans beating and shooting the living hell out of each other. And the scale of these machines and the battles they fight is constantly trying to be put in perspective by its surroundings. On the maps are huge buildings that the titans just tower above and even destroy with ease, but it are the small groups of space marines fighting on the ground shooting each other that truly emphasize on the scale of the titans. It is a really fun, nice detail that I hope they will push further. Maybe we get to a point that there are more and larger fights going on around these titans, giving even a better scale of battle, but also the sense of the power these titans hold. And then there is the music, which is just perfectly on point. If there's something I don't want to see changed, it's the music. It sounds industrial, but it also has the sense of grandness that only suits titans. They are the sacred god engines of war, and the music perfectly images that. Though it would be nice to see in the future more music being added, as right now there are only 7 tracks. It are things like that that shows me that the small group of people working on this game are very passionate and care for this game. And while I might sound mostly negative about the game and you might even think that I hate it, I really don't. Though there are 2 reasons why I might sound like I dislike or hate the game. The first reason is that I want this game to be better than it is right now. The ideas might be flawed, but the people behind it are on the right path. There's clearly a lot of love and passion from Membraine Studios to this project. And that is not shown by just words or lousy promises, but by the way the game looks, feels, and how they interact with their community. Almost under every post they reply, answer questions where they can, and take to heart what other people say. But it also seemed like they really take responsibility for what and how they release new content. There are multiple early access games that have monthly updates but barely add anything, but just create the idea that the game is still in development. But here it feels to me that the people behind the game only wants to release updates for their game when it's finished and it works. That is why there is only a handful of updates a year, but when they update something, it actually adds something new to the game. The second reason is that this game is, well, in early access. It's a work in progress, and the idea behind early access is that the community can give direct input and opinions on the game that is being developed, which is exactly what I'm trying to do here. And while I think it's good to praise things done right in a game in early access, I think it's better to give criticism, which can be tough at times. But honestly, here it's tough love, because I really want this game to succeed. And again, I do think this game is definitely on the right path, but in my opinion it just needs to do and dare more than it does now. But even outside of my opinion, there is also a fan that thinks this game needs more time and maybe some more manpower, as development right now goes really slow, and I, as a fan, fear that they will run out of funds before even completing this game, let alone approve further on it. Adeptus Titanicus Dominus is a great idea for a game. I do think it would be better for them to move onwards from just being an adaptation of a tabletop game, but let's keep taking small steps, as there are bigger and more important things to work on, like a campaign or story mode. This game is right now €12, and what you get for it works fine and is entertaining for at least a couple of hours. According to Membraine Studios, their main focus is right now on the campaign, and once that is out, I will definitely check it out, but for now the game is very basic. So, should you buy it? When I bought the game, I considered my purchase as a long-term investment for success. Buying early access games are to a degree a gamble, with as best result getting a good game in the long run, but it could as easily backfire and turn out into nothing, which is exactly why it's a gamble. So, if you like Warhammer 40k, or Titans, or just want to make huge mechs fight each other for a couple of hours, I would say go for this game. Right now it's not a lot, but it works, and with the eye on the future, it will only become more and hopefully even better.